of Speed Demos archive around 15 years ago. So in this game, you start with a few extra items. You start with Space Jump, Boost Ball, Spider Ball, Morph Ball Bombs, and missiles. And what happens in the intro section of the game is you get ambushed by the main threat on this planet, which are the Ing, and they take your stuff. Now, in the out-of-bounds categories, which are more commonly run, you can do an out-of-bounds trick called item loss skip, which basically just means you go out of bounds in the room I was just in, and you go past the trigger that takes all your items. So you get to keep all these really good major items from the very start. But in this category, we have to go get all of them back, and most of those items require you to go and kill the boss that took it from you. It's one of the big things that makes this category different is it has a large emphasis on combat that the other categories don't really have. You have to fight almost every boss in the game to progress in this run. There's still some sequence breaks, but most of it is doing stuff out of order rather than actually skipping stuff. With a couple exceptions. But for the most part, we're fighting most of the bosses in the order that we're supposed to, and we end up fighting them on pretty bad equipment. So there is a common trick in the Prime series called Dussel Jump, where you press into a slope and try and follow the contour of it to try and get it to push you up. This one's kind of tricky. Basically going to skip scanning the thing that moves the crate. Also, we are skipping the Dark Suit in this run. So, the 3-tank Boost Guardian incentive, everyone knows how Boost Guardian was really, really difficult casually. We have to do that with no Dark Suit. Dark Suit reduces the damage of the Dark World from 6 damage per second to 1.2. So if you're familiar with like Super Metroid randomizers and stuff, heat runs, that's kind of a similar mechanic in this game. And I'm going to be taking 5 times the amount of damage that we're supposed to take during that fight. So it's going to be a tough one. That's also one of the things that the out-of-bounds runs don't really have to do, because they get to keep Boost Ball right from the start. So they never have to fight Boost Guardian. Please get out of my way. I'm going to do another slope jump here. This one's a little bit tougher than what I did before. It skips a cutscene, and normally you can use this to actually dupe the first missile launcher you get. I personally am not going to do this, because if you don't ever trigger that cutscene, the game actually never spawns an Emerald Translator gate the next time you go through this area, and it saves a bit of time not having to open it. In this room, I'm going to stand on this hive and do a couple of dashes. I'll explain dashes in a bit. These are pretty tough. These are two pretty tough dashes where it's hard to see what you're doing. Here we go. That saves about 15 seconds over breaking the wall and activating the cannon and such. So now we're doing the first boss fight in the game, the Dark Alpha Spinner. I don't want to use my last missile because I want to still have one to open a missile door later. The item you get from this fight is called the Energy Transfer Module, and it's basically just a plot device. It literally actually doesn't do anything. But in this run, there's no way to avoid doing this fight like there is in other categories, so we just have to do the fight. So this category hasn't really been run in a long time since the Speed Demos archive days, like I was saying. Basically around 2010, up until 2010, Out of Bounds was a generally banned technique on Speed Demos archive, which is the main speedrunning hub and website in the knots. But Out of Bounds does a lot to break this game. It doesn't let you beat it right away, because the goal of this game is to get the 9 Sky Temple keys to reach the final boss, and there's no way around that. So there's still quite a bit that you do in any percent, but basically any percent breaks to really powerful items like the Screw Attack and Light Suit really early. But I picked up this category to learn randomizer for the randomizer tournament. You're allowed to use Out of Bounds in randomizer races for this, but a lot of the first half of the game is most of the time you want to stay in bounds and get all your checks done. Make sure that you stay in logic, because that's where all of your super important early game items to get around are, like Dark Beam, Light Beam, Space Jump. So I decided that this was the best, bang for my buck to learn tricks that would actually be useful in randomizer. Out of Bounds is pretty tough in this game. There's a lot of weird... the way that Out of Bounds movement works is really weird. I'm not going to go too much into it, but it's very easy to soft lock doing it. And learning how to do it properly for a randomizer race requires you to have a lot of experience being comfortable with it. So if you're just learning individual applications of it, it's generally not the most worthwhile thing to learn right away. So I decided to focus on all the other tricks that this round teaches you instead. And because we don't use Out of Bounds, this run basically has to do the areas in order. So there's 3 major areas in the game. I'm in Temple Grounds right now, which is the hub area of the game. But the 3 major regions, aside from that, are Agon, Torvus, and Sanctuary. And the no Out of Bounds run has to do all of them in order. And I forgot to scan the randomizer hit. Whoops. So Agon is going to be mostly playing the game normally. We're going to have to get bombs and Space Jump, unlike any percent run. And then we can go get Dark Beam and Light Beam. But since the dark suit isn't actually needed for anything other than reducing damage taken in the dark world, we don't have to actually get it at all, so we can skip it. Second area, Torvus, is going to be tough because of not having the dark suit. It's designed... I'm gonna go for pretty scary Dussel Jump here. It's really easy to fall off doing this. Ah, fell off. Dang it. Torvus is designed as having the dark suit in mind. Please. There we go. You actually have to have your jump be in the air already when you're rubbing against the slope. Otherwise it doesn't actually push you up extra. Another thing is that once you get space jump, in addition to letting you double jump, space jump actually increases your jump height, which is not super obvious. But it's actually quite difficult to do some of the early game movement without it. Some of the slope jumps are much, much tighter than you would think. So Torvus is designed around having the dark suit, so it has fewer safe zones. So it's hard to survive with all the damage I'm going to be taking there. Sanctuary is going to be a gauntlet of doing a bunch of hard tricks in a row. But for now, we're just fighting Bomb Guardian, who stole our Morph Ball bombs. When it becomes vulnerable, it goes back to its crawling phase at every quarter of HP you drain. So I'm going to... oh, well, that's not working out so well. The idea here is to oh, I didn't even get it past the first quarter. This fight's not going very well. So the idea is to do damage in specific intervals that they actually skip over the quarter intervals. You can two-round it if you do it properly. If you miss any of your attacks when it's first vulnerable, then you don't have time to get all of the correct attacks in. Each area is kind of structured like a Zelda dungeon. The room I was just in is the Agon Temple. And behind it is the energy controller of the area. So what you're supposed to do in the story of the game is you're supposed to take the planetary energy that was stolen from here, which is in the same location in the Dark World, and then bring it back to the Light World. And to get to the temple in the Dark World, you have to find 3 keys in the Dark World, beat the big boss that's in the Dark Temple here, get the energy, go back to the Light World, and then put it back. Usually the game's way of enforcing this is having a major item you absolutely need on the big boss here. But the major item on a Morbus is the Dark Suit, and we don't need that. But what we do need to do at the light world energy controllers there the first time is scan the holograms. The Luminoth holograms there will give us a translator that we need to open certain gates. These guys are kind of scary. These are Dark Pirate Troopers that got possessed by the Ing, which are the inhabitants of the Dark World. And when they come into the Light World and possess enemies, the enemies become a lot stronger and hit a lot harder. So we're trying to go into the Dark World here to go fight Jump Guardian to get Space Jump. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to bomb these 3 blocks that are blocking the sand, and it's supposed to align the mirrors, but we can do a jump onto this ridge here of the Morph Ball Tunnel to go straight to the last block, and as soon as you bomb the last block, the game thinks you completed the puzzle. So we're going to get Space Jump pretty soon, but to get to Jump Guardian is a bit of an extra loop around a few rooms that we don't actually need to go through. We can go the back door instead, get to it faster. It's just supposed to go over to the left, but instead we can do a double bomb jump here. And if we unmorph at the right time, we can make it up to this ledge. This room, you're also supposed to have Space Jump here, but if you stand on this blade pod, this container, then you can do a precise jump to get to the far ledge. It's actually not that precise, but the standable area of the blade pod is kind of deceptive. And here we're going to shoot at nothing for a while. So this is the Jump Guardian fight, but its hitbox is actually loaded before the fight begins, and we can just wail on it. It's faster to do this than do the actual fight, because during the fight, it jumps around and puts up a shield, and it gets very annoying to actually land hits on it.
Do you think this would be a good time for a couple of donations?
Sure.
Alright, we've got $30 here from Dark Moon. That was $2 for each of his hero death in his run. We got $20 from XGermal1. A shout out to the Prime community. Thank you for 1 year of glorious runs and epic multi-worlds. Also, luck on that boss, Azder.
Thank you. I'll need it.
And one more here. We got Summer B76 with a $36.68 donation there, bringing us up to a nice even 12,900.
Okay, so kind of visually, obviously, how the Dark World works is there's these safe zones. Some of them need to be shot to function, this game tells you. They heal you for 1 second, for 1 energy per second when you're in them, but the Dark World does 6 damage per second when you're outside of them. So now that I have space jump, I can double jump. It gives you a lot more movement options to deal with things once you get more places. And we're just gonna blow up those phase-on crates with the Dussel to kill both those pirates and get the drops. I have to do a bit of a battle here. A fully charged shot here does a little bit more damage than a missile, but it takes more time to charge the shot. We're going to get Dark Beam and Light Beam pretty soon, and unlike the other Prime games, this one has an ammo system for the beams, which I think makes the ammo management for speedrunning really interesting. The Dark and Light Beam are super powerful. Oh, missed the cycle. They kind of have polarity systems in place for weaknesses, so in general, Dark Beam tends to do double damage against Light World enemies, and Light Beam tends to do double damage against Dark World enemies. And they usually do half damage against enemies of the same type. I'm gonna pop into this room briefly to make the game think that I was in that little alcove. I'm basically tricking the game into letting me scan the blast door controls from outside of that room, which is a little bit faster. So there's a lot of movement techniques in this game that are common to most of the Prime series. Haven't had... Oh, I got shot in the middle of that jump. Lost enough speed to not make it all the way. There's gonna be better times to go over the movement techniques, I think. This room has an E-tank in it that normally I would get for my runs, but this is the slowest E-tank in the first part of the game. So this is the one that we're going to skip for the 3-tank Boost Guardian. So you're supposed to scan these panels to put these crates down. And the solution for getting to the next room is the opposite of the solution needed to get the energy tank. But we can actually just pull down the crates 2 levels instead of 3, because there's a little slope that we can jump on the far end. So we don't have to do the entire thing. And it takes a save here. it lets the game load the next room while you take it, so it doesn't cost as much time as it looks. Pretty low health. I usually get the E-Tank there to refill it. We've got the Dark Samus 1 fight coming up, which guards the Dark Beam. Dark Samus is kind of your general nemesis throughout the Prime series. So normally the 90% run gets an early power bomb and is able to just vaporize this fight instantly. But we actually have to fight her normally here, which can get pretty annoying. She flits around the room a lot. The first half of the fight isn't too bad. But once you get her down to half, she goes into a cutscene where she goes to her second phase. In this phase, she'll do aerial attacks that she's invincible during. So I'm actually going to fire missiles at her because those cause her to put up a shield. And it stalls her a little bit from actually doing an aerial. So her aerial attacks are... yeah, there's an aerial attack. She'll either launch herself at you or she'll fire a super missile at you, and she's invulnerable while she's doing those things, so you want to try and avoid letting her do that. Sometimes when you shoot the missiles at her, she doesn't actually put the shield up and she'll let the missile hit her instead, which normally you'd think is good, but it was actually bad in that case because it caused me to run out. So that starts to be your example of boss fights we have to do in this run that are trivialized in other categories. So now that we have the Dark Beam, Dark Beam is a pretty massive damage dealer on Light World enemies. It's also needed to open these freestanding dark portals that don't have a terminal attached. So some of the portals have terminals that you either scan or solve a puzzle or whatever to open the portal, but some of them you need to shoot dark or light beam at them. I'm gonna do a slope jump off this dead guy. There's a there's a lift crystal you're supposed to shoot with dark beam on the other side of that to get up there. I'm gonna shoot a missile at these phazon crates because these inglets can actually shoot the phazon crate when you're next to it and blow it up in your face, which would do 75 damage. We're gonna take another save here. This one is actually, since you're taking dark roll damage, the refill you get from it is basically always worth it. This room's called Phazon Site. I don't like it very much. There are 3 locks that you have to scan throughout the room to open the door at the end. And for this one, you have to get close enough to it since it's on a high ledge, or the scan doesn't count. There's a couple other scan locks like that later. So I'm gonna do a dash here. This one's personally tricky for me because it's in your scan target is in range. So dashing in this game, there's an intended mechanic when you're locked on called strafing. Hello. So there's an intended mechanic called strafing where you have higher sideways speed when you jump sideways locked onto an enemy, or, you know, locked onto anything you can lock onto. Scan targets are pretty good for that, too. if you press the R button in the middle of a strafe, then you can, oh, that's, I missed that dash there. I'm trying to explain dashes and I missed it. So I guess to get up to that platform, I'm actually going to, do the intended way of getting up here to make sure I don't die. So if you press the R button during a jump, it basically locks your momentum. The R button is supposed to be the button that lets you stand in place and kind of free aim, look around. But it also serves to lock your momentum. And if you press R during the correct part of a strafe, you lock yourself at a better speed, which lets you cross larger gaps than you're supposed to, which is what I was trying to do there. So that's called dash. We're also going to pick up an optional beam ammo expansion in this room. Because they double the amount of, they add 50 ammo to each beam, and there's one boss in particular that we need a lot of beam ammo for. I'm going to do another dash here to cross this gap. There's a thing that I didn't want to blow up with the turret, because there's 3 big kind of generators blocking your way to the item in this room. The third one is directly blocking the item, but the second one triggers a pirate fight there that I don't want to have to deal with. So I do the dash to skip it. But since we now have Dark Beam and Light Beam, we can actually just leave Agon entirely. The next thing to do would be to collect the 3 Dark Agon keys to fight Immortus and get the Dark Suit, but we don't need it. So we are just going to get out of here and go straight to Torvus. So dashing is a pretty good way to cross gaps. It's a lot crazier in the first Prime game, because the first Prime game actually has no sideways speed cap. But they more or less patched it in Echoes. You can still do them by pressing R to lock your speed, but it's a little more limited what you can do with them. And saving there because, so I said that you don't really need the Dark Suit for anything. The game does attempt to do a check for it. So we're going back to Temple Grounds to go to Torvus. And I haven't moved the crate yet here, so I'm gonna do this cute little dash to get around the awkwardness that is the crate being in the way. Normally you just kind of roll through that room. I keep forgetting this. You want to shoot that light block to open it for much later. So on the way to Torvus, there is a room that is filled with a hazard called Inclaw Vapor that does massive amounts of damage to you if you don't have the Dark Suit. There is supposed to be a very long path you have to go through lots of Inclaw Vapor, and you're not supposed to be able to survive it without the Dark Suit. But there is a slope jump to get up to a portal, which is the final destination of that room. There's a slope jump that just shortcuts to it right away. without having to be in the Inkclaw Vapor for very long. You do have to be in it for some of the time, so this jump is actually very dangerous. And I have one fewer tank than I normally have, so it's actually a little more likely that I die to it. I'm just coming up in the next 2 rooms, basically. So, do my best to hit it. This trick, basically, you have 1 or 2 tries to get it. Okay, got it first try. I don't think that looked like a lot of damage, but the damage really, really ramps up after you've been in it for a few seconds. If you don't get it first try, you basically lose 2 tanks. I'm gonna do another slope jump here. Oh, that one's really hard. I can't believe I got that one first try. Gonna jump on some standable terrain here to skip all the light blocks you're supposed to shoot to progress in that room. It's just a lot faster to do the jumps to skip those light blocks because when you shoot them, they take a long time to move. It's very slow. Okay, survived the trip into Torvus. So the game gets a lot deadlier here for the Dark World trips. Those shredders do a lot of damage if they catch up to you. Climbing over that route is a little tricky. The slope doesn't like to cooperate. Sometimes there's a longer path through the room you're supposed to take. So, in No Out of Bounds, I go through this room to open this gate on the other side, and then come straight back, because this is the fastest way out of Torvus. Later, when we're done here. But I'm about to do our first BSJ of the run. It stands for Bomb Space Jump. And it's a trick involving another trick called an instant unmorph. So basically what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to do a bomb jump and have the camera obscured when I unmorph, so that it gives me an instant unmorph. And that allows me to do an extra jump in the air. And I'm going to scan dash off of this to get to the top bridge. That skips a loop going around Torvus just to get up to that door. The scan post there is for a cannon that gets you onto the bridge anyways, but it's faster to dash onto the bridge rather than activate the cannon. And if we do a charged light shot and it all hits the engine of that skiff, it blows up, killing the pirate on it. And if we do a charged dark shot, the dark beam's kind of like the ice beam in this game. Charged shots will freeze enemies, and you can shatter them with a missile just like the first Prime game. Dark beam is just incredibly powerful against regular pirates because they're light world enemies. So here we get super missiles. And we're going to get Emerald Translator from the energy controller back here. This is Torvus Temple. So this is the spot in the Dark World where we'd fight the big boss of Torvus. Now we actually do have to fight the main boss of Torvus, whose name is Chica. Often feared to see required in randomizers. Chica's a very, very difficult fight to optimize, especially with the equipment that we're going to have. Any percent kind of trivializes this fight, because it's going to have light suit already. Most runners, unless you do a difficult trick, will have secret missiles for it, which also speeds up the fight, makes it easier. And for the second phase of that fight, they do a glitch called Cannonball, which basically preserves the state of you being shot out of a cannon, and Adult Chick is for some reason vulnerable to that, and dies instantly. But in this category, we have to do the full fight, and it's very, very intensive on ammo. It's pretty ridiculous. I'll just make sure I have enough missile. I do. Okay. Alright, so this is the last E-Tank that we'll have for Boost Guardian. So what we're supposed to do is take the Emerald Translator and open this gate. Not this one. This is just a green super door. We're supposed to scan open this Emerald Translator gate that's blocking the path to Boost Ball. But we're not going to go to it right away. We're going to make a pit stop to get gravity boost. So the intended sequence of events here, we're actually cutting a lot of backtracking out. What you're supposed to do is go get Boost Ball, and then leave to Temple Grounds, use the Boost Ball to get Secret Missiles, and then come back down here with Secret Missiles to open a door in Lower Torvus on the way to get the gravity suit. So there's this big whole puzzle down here that we're supposed to do to navigate the outer ring of this area to disarm these 3 locks that you're not supposed to reach. You're not supposed to be able to reach these ledges directly with that gravity. But with a technique called an underwater dash, you basically hit R and B on the same frame. And it sounds like that's not too hard, but your second jump has to be timed really well so that you don't hit your head on the ceiling, because that causes you to lose all your speed. So I executed both of those first try, which is really good. It's not... wait, I don't need the cannon again. It's not a super easy trick. So you're supposed to do 2 kind of big puzzles around this whole area to get all of those locks down. But we can pretty much just skip all that and go straight to gravity. And we need gravity. So gravity is not a suit in this game. It's an item called Gravity Boost, and it actually, when you're underwater, it gives you a kind of a jetpack function you can use for your third jump. So on our way out, we're going to get ambushed by a boss called the Alpha Blog. The Blogs are these aggressive aquatic creatures. So we're supposed to do this fight to get out, but we can actually do a BSJ into gravity boost. You can see the jetpack function here. So you're not supposed to be able to reach that platform until after the fight's over. But with the bomb space jump, we can just leave the room. That boss is extremely annoying, and it's completely random whether it opens its mouth or not when it charges you. So basically nobody wants to fight it. So we have to pop in here for one of the 3 Torvus keys. We actually need these, because we absolutely need the major item that's on Chica. That's why any percent also has to fight it. It's a very important item called the Dark Visor, and the Dark Visor is needed to get every single Sky Temple key. It's hard required, there's no way around it. So basically the only reason this run actually needs to pick up gravity is because this one key is down here. I think gravity would be, like, reasonably skippable, if we didn't need that key. So we did this part slightly out of order. Now we're going to go get Boost Ball. So, thing that people donated for is coming up pretty soon. So I haven't explained instant unmorphs and BSJs super well, but... basically, the unmorph animation takes 1 second. But if the camera is obscured when you try to do it, then the game isn't able to play the animation. So it just lets you unmorph instantly. And the thing that comes in handy with is that, for whatever reason, you have 24 frames after unmorphing before the game actually... So if you can jump in the first 24 frames of an unmorph, and the game will consider you to be on solid ground. Those 24 frames are supposed to get completely eaten up by the unmorph animation. But if you're able to skip it, then the game lets you jump. So it's not too hard to do a single BSJ like that. You just press X and then B as soon as you can. But there are more advanced BSJs you do later on. One of them is called a 3 BSJ, where you sort of do a double bomb jump into a BSJ. And because you have to do all of that bomb jump during the 24 frames, your window for actually executing the jump press is much, much smaller. It basically only amounts to a few frames. So we're going to fight the Boost Guardian here, and this fight really, really, really sucks without the Dark Suit. It's really bad. So Boost Guardian has, I'm only going to shoot 4 light shots so it doesn't go into its invisible phase right away. Sorry, invincible, I should say. That hit I took wasn't good. Okay, so when you do a certain amount of damage to it, it'll go into its boost phase where it's completely invincible, and you have to do 3 or 4 rounds of bombing the puddle to get it to come out of this phase. There's a lot of luck involved. There are these 4 pillars on the outside of the room. Ow. I might not survive this one. And there's no safe zones in the room. You're supposed to have Dark Suit for those. I think I'm pretty dead because it didn't hit a pillar. Yeah, I'm not surviving this. I needed that Inglet to drop an Ultra. Yeah, this fight is actually really obnoxiously difficult, even with the Dark Suit. Before item loss skip was discovered, out of bounds runs were still able to trivialize this fight because of early power bomb. Dropping a power bomb just kills it instantly. So 5 light beam shots are basically enough to get it to go into its invincible phase. But if it's in the black puddle, you have as much time as it spends inside the puddle to be able to do extra damage to it. Before it goes invincible. Now hopefully when it's in boost phase it knocks these 4 pillars out that have 100 energy drops in them. If it breaks the pillars, it also allows these inglets to spawn at the origin conversion points of the pillars. If it never breaks a pillar, you'll never get an enemy to spawn in here. So it's pretty luck-based, whether it does that or not. And it's pretty key to surviving the fight. Can you let me pick up the thing, please? Oh my goodness. I took a lot of damage. I took so many hits trying to pick up that energy drop that I still might not actually survive the fight. Can you please unform from the puddle so I can... Oh! I'm gonna die during the death animation. It just would not unpuddle in time for me to kill it. You can get it to 0 health when it's in the black puddle, but it won't die until it reforms. So I was close there, but it wasn't quite enough. So this fight is the reason that this category is so difficult for people to pick up. And back before Out of Bounds was unbanned on Speed Demo's archive, this was kind of the big deterrent for single segment runners. We'll get it soon. That was mostly good. It just hit me way too many times when I tried to pick up my drops. There's a lot of luck to it, but there's also a lot of skill in trying to keep it in the puddle form, while also not letting it hit you. Can you hit the thing? Okay, we got it. We're gonna live. There we go. The extra E-tank that I normally grab is probably like 30 seconds. It's optimal to skip it. But I normally don't because it's so difficult to survive that fight. It's normally the fastest thing to do, or the natural thing to do would be to go backwards back to that portal. Whoops. But you can do a 3 BSJ to get over this fence, and save a lot of backtracking to get to this portal over here. This is the door that we ultimately want to go through. I don't have very much health, so this is actually going to be a bit scary, surviving the trip. We're going to be okay? We made it. Okay. Ah, crap. Okay, I'm gonna have to fight Vuskar again. I should have hit that ink sphere from the safe zone and gotten the health drop from it. From there. That's okay. Let's do the fight again. Oh, that's extremely annoying. It got its possession attack off. You want to dash to dodge it, but it's kind of rough. I'm probably dead, because it hit me with that. Okay, I have a chance of surviving. I was actually very lucky that it hit that pillar right away. Oh, that's very lucky too. It shouldn't have hit me, but it possessed me again. At least I can get drops, since enemies are here now. I didn't get enough damage on it though, so it's gonna do another phase. So this doesn't look great because there's no pillars for it to break anymore. But the nice thing is that with all the pillars gone, there will be 4 inglets that spawn every round. That was not ideal. Getting hit there is not good. I need to get a good drop from one of these enemies, or I'm gonna die. There we go. You know, I had no idea it did that. If you leave it in the brown pot of flora enough, apparently it just goes back into boost phase. That's actually new to me. Okay. Boost right into me, why don't you? Getting lucky so far with these pillar breaks. He does 40 damage, so it's kind of nice if you get him to not hit you in the process. Okay. Got a good shot at this. Unfortunately, it got the possession on me again, which makes it take longer for it to... It does extra damage to me, and it makes it take longer to puddle. And then it decided to puddle right underneath me. And now it's doing a third round. Okay. That was a really unlucky way for second round to go. And it hit me again. I need it to break the pillar, like, right now. I got a missile drop instead of a health drop. That's great. Yeah, I'm dead. I'll save next time I get the fight. Instead of going straight to... over the fence. This game has systems in place where it's more likely to drop you things that you need. If you're below 20% health, then there's an 80% chance you get a 100 health drop. If you're completely out of missiles, there's an 80% chance that you... Let's do this attack. How did that light blast miss? That was really unfair. If you're completely out of missiles, there's an 80% chance that you'll... Oh, nice. Broke it from right under me. 80% chance you'll get a missile drop if you're completely out. Same with power bombs. Okay, that was... yeah. I just think it makes it hurt more when you get screwed by Prime 2's drop system, because it's not supposed to screw you. Prime 1's drop system is supposed to screw you. I hate it when it does its light beams attack. Because it's like, as soon as you shoot, it's gonna turn invincible. That was a pretty unfair series of hits I just took. So was that. Come on, really? Come on. And did it actually hit me on its way to the center of the room? That's incredible. On its way to the center of the room in the cutscene, it still hit me. Oh wow. Got an ultra from an inglet. I need it to break the pillar now. So, you know, I did the fight already. But the game says no. The game says no. It's giving me pretty bad luck on the first phase, and it's making it really hard to convert it into a successful second phase. Thank you for actually puddling right away, for once. Okay, that's a good start. That'll do. I just need to not get screwed on pillars. Getting screwed on pillars. There we go. Oh, really? I hate that it turns invincible right after you hit it when it does an attack. It should be dead, but, you know, it's just gonna stall me to death instead. I have no chance. That should have been it. If it didn't do the beam attack there, I would have killed it. It's really unlucky. That wasn't a lot of damage. Also, kind of stalled. I need to get better look on pillars now. Would have been able to kill it if I'd gotten another charge light shot on it. It's tough when it does another boost phase on low health. So when it's on low health, it'll do 4 boost phases here instead of 3. I still have a pillar it can break. That's a good thing. Just need it to break it. kidding me? Possession was exactly what I didn't need, and then I didn't get the drop. It's really unlucky again. Actually made it all the way across the bridge up to the top ledge, so that's pretty lucky. I cannot seem to dodge the position attack. That really sucks. Good. So close. So close. So close. Okay, I've got a chance. Or do I? Uh-huh, okay. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. That hit is really unlucky. How is it still boosting? I don't understand. That's incredibly unlucky. It should have unpuddled there. Should have had it. Funny thing is, I killed it already. I just died afterwards. Died on the way out. Okay. There we go. This looks promising. That was a really good first round. I finally dodged the possession attack. Okay. Jeez. It shouldn't have taken so long to get that the second time. I want these drops. Yeah, you're supposed to have Dark Suit here.
Think I can sneak in a quick donation here for you?
Yeah, okay, I just got this trick. Should be good for it now.
Good to go?
Yeah.
Okay, I got $21 here from Polar Bear Bunny there saying, "Hi Azder, good luck on run and happy birthday."
Thank you. Thanks, bud. Okay, now we're finally past that. We're supposed to have Grapple here. Grapple is the boss that we skipped in Lower Torvus. That dash to get over to the key without it is really tricky. So we're gonna do a backup where we stand on that ink sphere. That jump to get over to the key, even from there, is really precise. Okay, so now that we have all three of the Torvus keys, we just get to go fight Chica, who's pretty close to Boost Guardian, so it helps a lot that we were able to route Torvus this way. Gonna get an energy tank because it's a really fast way to refill health. Alright, so this is the most ammo-intensive fight in the game. It's most difficult to optimize. We actually want to get the ammo station to refill. That's how badly we need everything. So the first form of Chica is the larva. It's actually, I think it's actually resistant to both types of beams, so the beam that we shoot it with basically depends on situationally what we want it to achieve. So the light beam shots here while it's swimming are because it covers a good amount of area. The dark beam will shoot it. Wow, that was really unlucky that I got hit by the shredder as I was about to shoot. When it gets up on land and tries to eat me, that's when we start going for dark beam spam. The scan is to be able to target the weak point when it gets its belly up on the arena. It does double damage. So now I'm targeting its belly, it takes double damage from this. You can't target this unless you scan it. There are certain health windows that if you don't reach them, it'll actually do a jump up in the air. And the best thing to do is super missile it. You have to be ready for when it's coming. You have to know the health windows for when it's available to do that, to be able to do a fast fight. And because firing a super missile takes time, you have to charge your beam and press Y. It's really hard to react to. Okay, that was the larva stage. That's the easy part. the adult phase turns into a butterfly. And it has a light and a dark phase here, actually. So right now it's in the light phase. So it's going to take double damage from Dark Beam. The light phase is mostly just stunning it and getting the weak spots on its wings to show up. They're supposed to have Grapple Beam and Seeker missiles here. The Seekers are basically multi-target missiles that we'll get later. And they make it so that you can hit all the wing targets at once instead of having to do a bunch of different rounds of stunning it to hit each of them. So this is a pretty good example of having really bad equipment for a boss that you're supposed to do. Whereas this fight's much, much easier in the out-of-bounds categories. Okay, so now that I've knocked all 4 of its wings off, it goes to the Dark Phase. Dark Phase takes double damage from Light Beam. Now I want to partially use this phase to farm my Dark Ammo back, because the Dark Ammo is so important for the Light Phase. The light phase is the most difficult part, though, because the absolute best way to stun it is by using the Dark Beam, but the Dark Beam shots travel really slowly, so it's actually really difficult to get good shots in to hit it. See, if I don't hit it as soon as it comes out of its stun phase, it starts kind of swinging around the room. And the second half of the fight, if you let it be unstunned for too long, it actually does this ram attack, flies around the room for a super long amount of time, and it's not vulnerable during any of it. So normally it'd be pretty easy to stay within these safe zones, but I have to strafe around it to get shots at the wings because they don't have grapple, which you're supposed to use to get between the platforms. So I managed to not allow it to do any of its ram phases, which is good. And there we go. That wasn't too bad. If you run out of either light or dark ammo, that fight gets really, really bad to deal with there. You could lose by far your biggest way of damaging that particular part of it. So we're supposed to grab the Torvus energy from the controller and return it to the light world. But we're not going to do that. The only thing that going back through the temple actually checks for is if you unloaded and reloaded the room. So that's all we're going to do. We don't actually need to turn the Torvus energy in. It wastes a bunch of time to do that. What we really needed is the Dark Visor. Now, at 8%, you need the Dark Visor because the 9 Sky Temple keys needed to get to the end of the game are hidden in creatures called Flying NKHs. And they are only visible to the Dark Visor. You literally cannot hit them without having it. Get my health up a little bit. But in no out of bounds, the Dark Visor is also required to access Sanctuary. So that's why we have to do it now instead of later. We are going to get to the part of the game with the most tech in it. Sanctuary is basically a gauntlet of hard tricks. I'd say none of the tricks are as hard as that Boost Guardian fight was, but... it's where runs of these go to die, basically, if you get past Boost Guardian. Oh, I need to go get Seekers. So we need Boost Ball to do the spinners in this room to get Seekers. Any percent is usually able to route this in before doing any Torvus stuff, because you start with Boost Ball, and you get to keep it through item loss skip. So the way you're supposed to get out of this room is by using the Seekers to hit a purple door with 5 targets. This item is notorious for missing a lot. It just doesn't tend to work very well. It's a little bit faster to get out if you're the way we came in, though, and that requires an instant unmorph into the tunnel, which is kind of tricky. There we go. So you have to get an instant unmorph there, and you have to be aligned properly for it, because Samus does not get her morph ball hitbox until the morph animation is complete. Yeah, world record is 15 years old before I started running it, then other people started running it. The thing that makes out-of-bounds runs more interesting is there's a lot of different routes possible, whereas your routing options are pretty limited for no out-of-bounds. I usually take this save just to get health back. Torvus leaves you pretty bruised and battered, and the first part of Sanctuary tends to do that to you as well. So Sanctuary entrance is really annoying. Out-of-bounds runs will usually get an early power bomb. I'll be able to access Sanctuary through a side elevator in Agon. So once you get some of the later game, one of the later items in the game, you can unlock shortcut elevators between the different regions instead of always having to go through temple grounds. In general, the shortcut elevators to Torvus are locked by secret missiles. Because you're not supposed to have seekers until you get boosts from Torvus. And the shortcut elevators to Sanctuary are generally locked by power bombs. But since expansions count if you get them first, it's pretty easy to break those for out of bounds run. But in bounds, we have to go through the front, and the front is very annoying because the first thing that we have to do is fight 6 pirate commandos here. We saw a couple in Torvus Grove, those weren't too notable. The problem with these guys is they can chuck grenades at you, and they can also put up shields. The grenades do a lot of damage, and the explosion makes it hard to see anything. Their shields are a bit annoying too, but luckily... Oh, I just threw a grenade right at the end. Luckily you can actually get around their shields by shooting your charged arc shot at the floor. So we need Dark Visor to see the targets on some of these Seeker locks, which is why we need it coming into Sanctuary. And there is this robot called a Quad here. It's annoying to fight these because they have 2 separate parts that need to be dealt with in very specific ways, but you can actually jump off of its knee and skip the barrier here. Trying to BSJ to the upper level. There we go. Getting the jump off of that quad is very hit or miss. It's pretty tough to actually get a jump off its leg. If you don't get it in time, it'll walk too far away from the ledge, and you'll just kind of have to kill it normally. So killing the quads is annoying because they have... The head is called the command module, and they also have the main body underneath. To kill the main body, you have to walk away from it far enough to get it to do its drill spinny attack at you, and you have to boost into it, and then either bomb or boost into the red thing that pops out underneath it. But that only takes care of the body. You can kill the head by just shooting it. But if you kill the body first, the head pops off and it puts up a shield around it, and it's randomly either a light or a dark shield. So you need a specific beam to deal with it. So here, we're supposed to grapple across to the other side, so that we can get a shot at these secret targets. But you can actually, if you aim like that, you can shoot them from the same side that they're on. And this serves 2 pretty good purposes here. One is that if you try and grapple across, and then you try and shoot the secret locks, all those night barbs get in the way of your lock-on. The other problem is that we don't actually have grapple. So the other way of crossing it would be to do a technique called a roll jump. Roll jump is basically the same principle as a BSJ, so you get an instant unmorph so that you can still jump within 24 frames of leaving the ground. Except you do it for distance rather than height. We're about to do a roll jump to completely sequence break Sanctuary really badly. We're going to get Screw Attack, which is a really good movement item. And it's supposed to be one of the last items that you get in Sanctuary, and we're going to get it first. the way to do that is we're going to do a pretty tough roll jump across this room called Watch Station Access. Roll jumps are really tricky. Actually, I need to open the shortcut. Roll jumps are really tricky because it's a weird button combination. So you have to press X, B, and L in order and in time as you roll off the edge. So I'm getting the X and B part, but the L is supposed to be pressed after to keep your momentum, and you also have to get the instant unmorph. So you have to get the camera to block you unmorphing. But you can't do it too late. There we go, we got it. You can't try to unmorph too late, because then your 24 frames of being off the ground will be up. So, now I'm going to do a trick here to open this portal without Spider Ball. We're gonna get Spider Ball later, but the trick is just faster to do anyways, even if you have Spider Ball. We're gonna instant morph into the bomb slot, or we're gonna try to. This trick's pretty tricky to line up. We need this portal for later. Need it to be open. I am not getting my instant unmorph. So this one's tricky because you have to do it with a particular angle and position to get something to be blocking the camera at the right time. There we go. And we're gonna do a trick that was found last year, actually, called the boost jump, which is basically a boost into a roll jump. And we're gonna cross this room called Grand Abyss with it. So normally, for years and years and years, this room was the bane of runners' existence, skipping grapple beam, because there's this really precise dash onto a robot you're supposed to do to. You're not supposed to do it, but it was the old way of crossing this room. And you had exactly one try to do it, because it's only here on the first room state, and once you trigger it, it's gone forever. There's no robot to land on if you don't get it first try. So instead, we're gonna do a trick found this year to boost across and keep the boost momentum during the roll jump. So that wasn't actually known until last year, and it's a trick that you get to try multiple times instead of just once. So it makes getting into the game much more possible for newer players now. Now, it wasn't too bad for any percent before, because any percent gets screw attack like 15 minutes in. But we're over an hour in at this point. So a no out of bounds run would have been way tougher to skip grapple in. Also, the vault dash here is pretty precise. This just skips a whole bunch of extra portal hopping you normally have to do. Okay, so to get across that, we had to do something called a floaty dash. If you do your jump within 3 frames of leaving the ground, your dash gets a bit of extra height, and that's needed for dashes that are super tight like that one. So basically, what I've done in Sanctuary so far is just like 4 hard tricks in a row. Now this dash I'm going to do is actually really easy. Because the terminal fall trigger here is ginormous. Actually, I should have explained terminal fall triggers for watch station access where I did the first roll jump. So basically, terminal fall abuse is when you get far enough across the gap that the terminal fall trigger you hit makes the game think that it should put you on the wrong ledge. So those were a couple of spots where we tried to use that in. So getting screw attack first. It's pretty big. It lets us break the sequence of Sanctuary even more. So we're going to get our first power bomb. We're going to get an early power bomb, an expansion that's not intended to be your first. You're supposed to fight a boss for it called the Power Bomb Guardian, which is actually in Torvus, so the game requires you to backtrack quite a long way to get your first power bombs once you get Spider Ball. But we're just going to get a sequence breakable power bomb in this room. This room's called Transit Station. You're supposed to have power bombs to break open the glass to get to the portal here to do this big puzzle. And then you're supposed to have Spider Ball to get into this section, but we can actually screw attack into it if you do it at the right position. So it looks kind of like we're trapped here, but you can do a 3BSJ to get out. There we go. It's kind of hard to land on that slope too. Really good that I got all that first try. That's one of my favorite tricks in the run, doing that room.
Got time for a quick donation there, bud?
Yep.
All right. Well, we got $100 from Tracy M, saying, now that you've done the thing twice, good luck on the rest of the run and happy birthday.
Thank you, Tracy.
And quick note, that's going to put us up over the 13,000 mark here, so $2,000 away from meeting our goal of 15,000 for No Kid Hungry.
Nice. So now that we have screw tech, we don't have to worry about how we're gonna get across this gap for the second time. We still don't have Spider Ball, so that's next on the agenda to get. Oh crap, I need a Power Bomb. I forgot. This room is one of many dumb rooms in the game. I don't know why the game does this for certain rooms, but certain rooms mandate that you have to kill at least 2 enemies before it starts spawning drops. So even though I had 0 power bombs, and I had an 80% chance of getting a power bomb drop, I wasn't eligible to get one at all until the second enemy I killed. So I had to kill both drones in that room. So you're supposed to power bomb this rubble here to solve the rest of the gyro puzzle, but you can actually screw attack it. You're not supposed to have screw attack at this point, but the rubble is vulnerable to screw attack. So I didn't need the power bomb for that. I do need it for another reason though. We need to solve this to get to the power ball door on the other side of the room a bit later for Echo Visor. But we need Spider Ball for that, so we're gonna go get Spider Ball first. In this room, there is a quad that you have to kill because the door locks. So we're gonna use the Dark Visor Secret Lock to unlock that cannon and just destroy the quad instantly with the cannon. Okay, this is Sanctuary Temple. Same deal here with the translators and stuff. We're going to go get the translator for the area. The translator here is the Cobalt Translator. We need it to open the gate that's to the left, which leads to Spider Guardian. Spider Ball is kind of a first item you're supposed to get in this area. But I wanted to make sure I have a Power Bomb for it, because one of the Sky Temple keys is actually behind a Power Bomb door at the point where you kill Spider Guardian. So for routing purposes, we want to already have Power Bombs at this point. The vanilla game wants you to backtrack here for it later. Screw Attack is pretty decent for speed as well. The top speed of Screw Attack is as fast as rolling with the Morphball normally. And we are going into the Spider Guardian fight, which... this boss is very annoying. It's basically a puzzle boss. So each round you have to turn it green. By hitting it 4 times with bombs. And then that reveals a bomb slot, which opens the gate and kind of gets it to run into these energy coils. These energy coils are the only way of damaging Spider Guardian. So this is the second phase of the fight, and it's the most annoying, because this half-pipe is really stupid. The problem with these half-pipes here is that if your speed isn't exactly right, you can't really control which side of it you end up on. Like, which side you actually make the landing on. This side isn't quite as bad. This third phase. The last phase has 3 different bomb slots, and the first time that we used on it, we had to activate the first bomb slot. Second time we stun it, we have to activate the first 2 bomb slots here, and then the final time we have to activate all 3. Now, it is on a timer, so you have to reach all the bomb slots quick enough. And you have to be a bit careful with how you do this. So these gates that close... if I can get up here. These gates that close to put it on the path to push it into the electric coil. If you do it wrong, you can trap Spider Guardian behind one of these gates. So I bombed that slot at basically the exact right time to not get it trapped. If you do get it trapped, then you have to start that part of the phase over. Okay, so that's the end of the fight. There's a powerbomb door behind here. This portal leads to one of the Sky Temple keys in this area. So you need all 9 of these to get to the end of the game. And this is going to be the very first one we pick up. So that's why we wanted to get early power bombs before Spider Ball. There's a bit of a Spider Ball puzzle in this room too that Skrtak is able to skip. One of the nice things about Skrtak is that if you don't have the Dark Suit, using Skrtak actually reduces Dark Roll damage to 2 damage per second. Not really sure why. It's not the same damage value as the Dark Suit is supposed to use. So it's a bit curious as to why it's like that. I need a powerbomb. It's so easy to forget that I need this one. This is the room I talked about earlier where you have to kill 2 enemies to get it to drop something. So we finally see Dark Samus back here again. Killing the pirates who are over here. Blowing up all these boxes with light beams so they give me dark ammo. Some of the refilling mechanics of this game is that it tells you about. Shoot opposite. You shoot the opposite beam to get the beam ammo you want. So, Dark Samus 2 is very weak to Dark Beam. By the name, you think Dark Samus is a dark-rolled enemy, but she's actually a light-rolled enemy. Because she's not actually from Ether. She's the reincarnation of Metroid Prime from the first game. So she's technically a light-rolled enemy, so she takes double damage from Dark Beam. And the Dark Beam particles from the charge shot do a whole bunch of damage and they stick to her. If I could just get her to not be invincible. Please. There we go. It's a fight you don't see in any percent. Because it just guards the Echo Visor. The Echo Visor is needed for exactly one thing in the No Out of Bounds run. And that's to get to Quadraxis, the main boss of Sanctuary. There is an Echo-locked gate that we need to go through. There's an out of bounds that really isn't too difficult or long. To get past it, but Since we're not allowed to do it in this category, we have to get Echo Visor. This is the function of Echo Visor. It lets you see these sonic emitter targets to shoot out locks. Now I'm going to do the opposite here that I did earlier. I'm going to try and get light ammo from these crates instead. Because the next boss we're going to be doing is Quadraxis. Quadraxis is a Dark World enemy. So we want to stockpile light ammo now. You're also supposed to use the Echo Visor in the Quadraxis fight. And I will be using it since I have it, but it's not necessary. Which is actually kind of interesting. The Echo targets on Quad are basically the only Echo targets in the game that you can just shoot at manually without the Echo Visor. You can't lock onto them though. So it is a bit nicer to have the visor. I'm supposed to roll shoot the safe zone to kill the Ing instantly, but I didn't have the correct beam equipped. I'm gonna save here just to refill energy to make the fight more consistent. So this is another fight where you're obviously expected to have the dark suit. There's no safe zones throughout the fight. But it isn't nearly as luck-based as Boost Guardian. Oh wait, we forgot to get the keys to this temple, didn't we? The 3 keys, like we did for Torvus. Oh, that's okay. We could just screw attack over the gate. The keys are hilariously skippable in this area. The ones for the other areas are locked pretty tight. But here you can actually just screw attack over the gate. It's just pretty funny. You have to do a BSJ to get the height necessary, but it's not very difficult to do. So for the first phase of Quadraxis, it's a giant quad. You have to wait for the knees to turn blue to signify they're vulnerable. So no safe zone, we're sitting here taking Dark World damage the whole time. Quad has a bunch of stupid attacks it can do in its first phase here. But I'm actually standing near one of its legs to try and get it to keep stomping me with that leg to avoid its other stupid attacks. It can actually jump and do a shockwave with all 4 at once, which is pretty hard to dodge. It can also do this mini thing that most quads can do. Okay. We're good. So second phase, its head comes off. To stun the head, there's this big antenna on the main body that we have to disable. You're supposed to target it with Echo Visor and shoot it, but screw attacking it also works, and it's faster to do that. And then once Quad's stunned, there are 3 sonic emitters on its head you have to destroy. Light Beam is a little more effective. I want to try and not lose all of my light ammo. And I'm actually going to try and get these drops here, so that I don't die. being low on light beam ammo is pretty bad for the upcoming sections of the game. So for final phase, you just shoot the head to stun it, and then it starts floating in a direction. You have to spider ball up one of the legs and boost onto the head. Oh, close. I might be in trouble, actually. I'm gonna go try and pick up these drops. Just try and start the phase over. So it can basically trick you as to which way the head is floating. Yeah, the game tricked me. Really? I went too early. This is bad. It doesn't drop stuff, does it? I might actually die. Yeah, I'm gonna die. Wow. That was really stupid. You have to boost onto its head at the right time. But it's really hard to tell from the camera position when the correct time to boost is. It doesn't reach. Really? Can I get the camera to give me a VSJ here, please? Like I said, the game kind of lies to you about which direction the head floats. So if you pick the wrong direction, you basically have two chances to boost onto the head. And going the wrong way at the start eats up one of those chances. It'll spawn drops for you after you blow up one of the two bomb slots in its head. So basically you have to do that twice and succeed at bombing its head. But if you fail too many times, you just have to restun it, have to wait for it to float in a correct position again, and you don't get any drops out of it. So that was my problem there. Screw attack wasn't enough. I got roughed up before I was able to take out the last antenna. Hopefully drops are decent. Okay. We'll just make sure we get the drops here. I got the direction wrong again. Now I gotta wait again. Okay, there we go. I don't know why, but sometimes you get stuck in the air there when you bomb the slot open. The drops I got weren't very good, but... Really? I picked wrong again? You've got to be kidding me. This is actually insane. Am I gonna miss this cycle? I barely got it, okay. Okay, so now it's dead. As long as they didn't screw me on drops for the end, I'll be okay. Oh my god, really? I have to pick these up before I pick up the item. So the drops go away after. Okay, so that was for Annihilator Beam. Which we also don't need for very many things. But we do need the light suit. The light suit is your reward for returning the energy for all three of the temples. But since you aren't supposed to be able to do them out of order, if you return the energy from the last temple, which is Sanctuary, the game assumes that you've done all three. So you'll be able to get the light suit out of it. That's one of the other reasons that in any percent out of bounds run will come here right away. And luckily, taking the energy from a Dark Temple fully heals you. We'd be in a tough spot here if that wasn't the case. So I'm going to do some screw attacks while I wait for the room to load and the door to open, because screw attacking makes you take less damage from the Dark World, for whatever reason. Out of Bounds doesn't even have to fight Quadrexes. You can actually just completely wall crawl past it. And go straight to the energy, get out, and bring it back to the light world. You actually don't need Annihilator for anything other than the doors on the way to the energy controller here. There's a couple scattered pickups required for 100% that's behind gray Annihilator doors. But aside from that, we don't really need the beam at all. Literally only have to pick it up because it's on quad and the door to the controller. It's an Annihilator door. It is a little bit faster to have Annihilator for final bosses. So we get to take advantage of that in this category. But in general, it's not a very required item. It's not required that often in Randomizer. Most categories besides 100%. Don't need it. Actually, I almost went the wrong way. So we're actually going to go through Spider Guardian's Arena again. Just because going out the back tunnel here is the fastest way out of here. It's still faster to have the early power bomb to be able to pick up the Sky Temple key there earlier. Theoretically, we could do it now, but you have to go through you have to retraverse a longer part of that maze to do so now. And it actually means that we end up getting 2 Sky Temple keys back-to-back suitless off the same pool of energy, which is a little bit problematic. So after you beat Spider Guardian, there's a cutscene on the way out the front of Sanctuary where Dark Samus shows up. It's at a point where you're not supposed to have fought Dark Samus 2 yet. She shows up and she blows up the bridge. So you have to watch a cutscene, and then you have to screw attack across the bridge, which is slower than boosting across it. I forgot to get a PB drop. I was supposed to get one here for the store. So instead of going out the front of Sanctuary, we're going to go out the side elevator, the shortcut elevators I was talking about that the other categories get to use a lot sooner. I'm going to assume I got one. Yeah, okay. It gets kind of tough being stuck on one powerbomb max for a while. But having more than that doesn't help as much as you would think, because the game is pretty bad about giving you powerbomb drops if you aren't at 0. So in a lot of cases where you have more than 1 max powerbomb, once you spend them, you effectively have 1 max, because it's really hard to get a drop if you have more than 0. So we're just gonna go out the front door of Agon to get back to the Great Temple to get the light suit as a reward. One other thing that this route accomplishes is it gets us next to another Sky Temple key. So I mentioned there's 9. I picked up 1 so far. The endgame cleanup is basically you need the light suit for 5 of the keys. So we try and get that as soon as possible. The way the rest of the keys goes is there's 2 in each major area. So that makes 6 total, and the 3 remaining ones are in Temple Grounds. This is what we opened the light block for so long ago. So the 3 of them are in Temple Grounds in the Dark World. This is the last one we're going to have to deal with before we have light suit. So each of the 3 that's in the Sky Temple Grounds are they're kind of in the quadrant that corresponds to the elevator that leads to one of the 3 major areas. So this key is the Temple Grounds key that's near the Agon elevator. And then there's 2 more actually in Agon itself. My favorite area... If we're counting light and dark as separate, for this question, I would say my favorite area is Sanctuary. If we're not separating light and dark, then my favorite area is Torvus. Dark World Sanctuary It's called the Ing Hive, and it's kind of advertised to be the Ing's kind of strongest line of defense. But it looks like a very rushed area. The rooms in it are very disconnected, and there are very few enemies actually in it, so it doesn't seem believable that it's their main stronghold. Oops. So I really, really like Sanctuary, which is supposed to be the Luminoth's main stronghold. That's pretty believable. I really like the music in Lower Sanctuary as well, but they did not make the Dark World version of that area believable at all. Probably rushed. Should have had more content in it. This room's interesting in the way that it loads. You have to force load the door. So one of the things the light suit lets you do is it lets you ride beams of light, and that actually includes the light beams that connect all the energy controllers across the world to each other. So once you get light suit, you can teleport from any energy controller to another one, which helps us route the end game better. But the game doesn't actually have a load trigger for that door on the way out of it, because I think the light beam transports here were kind of an afterthought. So there's no trigger you can touch that'll load the door sooner. The next room will only start loading there as soon as you shoot the door. So on that particular visit of the room only, the strat you want to do is you want to pepper spray the door with shots as fast as you can and hope you get the hit on the door as soon as possible. Unlike most cases where you're just trying to touch a load trigger sooner. So now that we have the light suit, we don't take any damage from the Dark World environment. It also lets us pass through dark water. And is actually the main reason that light suits hard required. There's a lot of really difficult out of bounds that you could do to skip the light suit, but it's very slow to do that for all the keys it's required for. It's nowhere near worth it. So this is one of them. It's in dark water. The way that dark water works is if you do not have light suit when the room loads, the game actually puts a floor underneath where the surface of the dark water is. So that's one of the two Torvus keys. Both the Torvus keys require a light suit, but the reason that we're doing the Torvus keys first is Powerbomb Guardian's here. And even though we have an early Powerbomb from Sanctuary, we actually still have to kill Powerbomb Guardian for a really dumb reason. One of the Sky Temple keys in Agon only exists in a room state after picking up the main Powerbombs item. So you actually have to kill Powerbomb Guardian and pick up its item, or that key does not exist. It makes it a really interesting check in Randomizer. It's pretty rare that that ends up being required. But it's crazy because it's a light suit requirement from being in dark water. And you have to kill a boss in a completely different region than the key is actually in. I didn't get a powerbomb drop, did I? Oh my goodness. So Annihilator being both dark and light combined is really good at getting you aim ammo. But I was supposed to also get a powerbomb drop from here, but I didn't get it. Did I get it this time? I think I got it. So this is gonna look silly. I'm going to enter the room of the boss that has power bombs by opening a power bomb door. That's supposed to be the exit. Okay, so this is kind of another puzzle boss. There's this enemy called a Sporb that power bomb guardian's possessing. You're supposed to use the spider ball tracks to get around 2-4 bomb slots over the room. Oh my goodness. So I'm trying to do what's called a sticky boost there. If you boost while hanging off the edge of a spider track, you can boost across several lines of track, basically skip a bunch of it. Oh, really? I got shot off? That's really dumb. Is it gonna... Oh, wow, okay. Usually it's the power bombs this guy throws that are gonna get you and not the anglet shots. I got hit by an anglet shot for one of them. So you can boost across some of these sections of track. You have to be careful not to be holding the R button, otherwise you'll stick to a piece of track that you don't want to. And the boost can be kind of inconsistent at times. Okay, that was really unlucky. Wow. You want to do the outside bomb slots first in general, because as the boss takes more damage, it gets a lot more aggressive with the power bombs it throws. I can do a double bomb jump to get up to this part of the track. Normally you have to follow it all the way around to the back. So we've literally had to get main power bombs just so that one of the keys in Agon exists. And that's why we do this area first and clean up. We still have a second Torvus key to worry about, which is also light suit locked. The rooms we're going through here are basically all the rooms that you're supposed to go through suitless, or not suitless, but without gravity. The first time you're in this area, that we're able to use the underwater dashes to skip. There's a key in this room as well. The lore behind where the keys are supposed to be... Actually, I'll explain that after I do this room. I'm gonna use Light Beam to hit these safe zones. The safe zones in this room... Did I hit that? I didn't hit it. The safe zones in this room force these enemies called watch drones to move out of the way that are blocking the tunnels. You want to shoot the safe zones with light beams specifically, because the light beam shot makes the save zone last twice as long as normal. Hold on, camera. Camera gets really bad in here too. Yeah, so there's 9 dead Luminoth throughout the world that are key bearers, and they have journal entries you can scan. And they were the ones tasked with finding the remaining Sky Temple keys to destroy the ruler of Ing. But they were all killed, and the locations of the keys are now in the corresponding Dark World rooms to each of their dead bodies. So actually locating the keys is a pretty interesting, like, kind of lore puzzle you have to put together by finding all the clues for them. And with so we took the side elevator to Sanctuary here to clean up the last Sanctuary key. And this game's areas interconnect really well. Which is really good for randomizer. Like, I really like the randomizer of this game. That's why I started playing it. Started playing it to get it on multi-worlds. But the randomizer of this works so well just because the areas are interconnected really well, and there's lots of different items that have that unlock things in interesting ways. So this is another light suit locked key. It's in a very, very, very isolated spot in the Ing Hive. It's one of the worst randomizer tricks in the game. This requires light suit and screw tech. So light suit lets you ride beams of light, and you have to ride up one level to get to this key. This key is at Hive entrance, which I would like to believe more in how this area is laid out, but one of the reasons I don't like this area is it's not believable as an entrance. Like, this corresponds to the Sanctuary entrance, but there's nothing here. And there's nothing really in any of the rooms that are attached to this chain. I just feel like they could have done a lot better with this area. So how many keys is that? We've got both Sanctuary keys now. Both Torvus keys. We have 1 key from Temple Garden, so that's 5. Next thing we're gonna do is clean up the Agon keys. That's 7. And then the last 2 in Temple Grounds are kind of on the way to the end of the game. So we had a lot of deaths to Boost Guardian. It shouldn't have been that many, but a 3-tank Boost Guardian incentive. It's pretty tough. I did get the fight in a few tries, but then I died on the way to Chica. And then I got some really, really bad luck trying to get that fight again. I also died to Quadraxis. So we had kind of a rough time with the bosses. I think this kind of shows this category is it's like a lot more combat oriented than the other ones. You actually go through this tunnel 3 times, and you do it for a different reason every time. First time it's to exit to Temple Grounds through the front of Agon. This time it's to get the Dark Agon keys, so you go the opposite way. And then we do it a 3rd time later in the run. After we're done here, to go to the Agon Energy Controller to warp to Great Temple. There's actually a lot of that in Sanctuary, too. We go through the same rooms multiple times, but for different purposes, and it gets hard to remember which trip you're on. Okay, so this is one of the rooms where you're supposed to do a fight, where you fight 6 Warrior Ing to get the 3rd Dark Agon key. But since we skipped the Dark Suit, we don't actually need the Dark Agon keys. That fight trigger, that red key, is still in the center of the room, and we want to avoid that trigger. But we're here for the Sky Temple keys. You're actually supposed to backtrack all the way back here to get another temple key in the same room. Okay, so that was the Battleground key. This key is Dark Oasis coming up. This key is the one that does not exist if you have not killed Powerbomb Guardian. This is one of the really bad randomizer checks. So there's just so much you have to do to get to it. And incentive donors aren't really to blame. I killed Boost Guardian on the 3rd try. That wasn't really the issue. So that's 7 keys. We just got 2 more. Problem was dying on the way to Chica after Boost Guardian without a save. And then the Quadraxis fight being stupid. I think the Quadra Axis fight, I got unreasonably unlucky. I don't think that would be very healthy for the kids to feed Boost Guardian to them. This key I'm going to get is in a room called Ing Reliquary. And it's supposed to be light suit locked. In the rooms leading up to it, you see these purple particles around the room. They're called Ing Storm. They do tons of damage to you without the light suit. They're kind of similar to the Inkclaw Vapor from earlier. But you need light suit to protect from them instead of dark suit. And luckily you do have light suit, but you can kinda hell run to this key without it if you're in a situation that should you want to do so, kinda like randomizer. You're taking tons of damage through all these rooms. But the damage fields are not near the doors. You can get unlucky with where these Warrior Ing are ending up, these puddles blocking you though. If that happens, you're kinda dead. But if you have a bunch of E-tanks, and you have a required item there in a randomizer, you can kinda hell run to it. We saw some interesting races in the random tournament coming down to that. Okay, so that's 8 keys. And we're gonna cut through Great Temple. So that was the key from the Sanctuary quadrant of Temple Grounds. The final key is basically next to where the end of the game is. And it's in the Torvus quadrant of Temple Grounds. This is the last portal that we enter in the run. In any run. Because you need to be in this section of the Dark World to get to the end of the game. All the Sky Temple rounds, Dark World sections, are completely isolated from each other. Which I also think is a bit of a wasted opportunity. But in general, some of the Dark World segments are just for you to get around obstacles that are there in the Light World if you're missing an item. Oh. I'm supposed to shoot the door. Play light pod got in my way. And that's the last key. So we're right next to the end of the game. It's time we get to fight final bosses, which 50% of rando players hate a lot. The rando community is actually very divided, so there's an option in the randomizer where you can just skip the final bosses, and the end of the run is at the key turn in here, once you find all 9 of them. But I prefer having them on, just because you have to fight them in vanilla. It kind of feels right to end the game that way, to me. So there's 2 final bosses, basically. There's Emperor Ing, which has 3 phases. And then there is Dark Samus 3 and 4 after that, which are kind of 2 different phases of the same fight. And we absolutely have to get Screw Attack to be able to climb this wall. So first phase of Emperor Ing, we gotta get these tentacles out of the way for it to reveal its eye. You can do annihilator shots on the eye, too, but I like to use super missiles on it. Main thing you want to avoid is the laser hitting you. It'll prevent you from firing your weapons. One of my supers only did splash damage on it. 4 is supposed to kill it, but if it doesn't hit it exactly right, then it can sometimes live. The annoying thing is that the more damage that you've done to the eye, the more tentacles that spawn when it comes out of that phase, so... So this is the second phase, this is the Chrysalis. It's got 11 spots on its shell where tentacles come out. And you have to destroy it. Out-of-bounds runs are generally able to use the cannonball glitch to preserve the state of being fired out of a cannon. One of the effects of that is that you're invincible while in morph ball form, and it makes this phase much easier to deal with. Without it, you have to deal with the puddles basically knocking you off of the shell whenever they feel like it, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. So that didn't go too badly. So, third phase, Mutated Emperor Ing. Has a bunch of hitboxes under the heels that are vulnerable to Screw Attack. It's not the intended way to fight it, but it's left over from a mechanic in the fight that they didn't end up fully programming, so they decided to abandon it. So I want to do my space jump low so that the range of my Screw Attack is as low so I can get it to me. I should probably get out of the phase on. Or it can jump into me, and I can have an easier shot at it. So after that, we have an escape sequence, which really isn't very much of an escape sequence, but you have to fight Dark Samus for the final time at the end of it. So this fight is... speedrunners hate this fight. So there's a big RNG aspect to it. So the first phase of this is Dark Samus 3. I'm going to try to do just enough damage to it to not let it go into the Dark Samus 4 phase. So 25 annihilator shots and a P shot. The idea is that at the end of it firing its cannon here, I can screw attack her and get it to do a bunch of damage. Now, once that's over, she'll try and go to the center of the room. Where is she? And put her invulnerable shield up. That'll be her truly getting into the Dark Samus 4 phase. But if I can kill her with a screw attack before I let her get to the center of the room, then I can skip this part of the phase. I didn't manage to get enough good screw attacks off. You can do the same thing as in previous iterations of the fight where you fire a missile to try to get her to put her shield up to prevent getting into this phase. But now that she's in it, I'm forced to wait out the phases in this fight. So the way Dark Samus 4 works is she goes into this big bubble, and she'll either shoot a missile at you, or she'll shoot out phazon particles. You have to suck the phazon particles up and shoot them back at her to damage her. It's the only way at this point. And it's random whether she decides to shoot them or not. And sometimes she'll come down for the ground on the ground. When she's on the ground, you have to do 60 damage for her to get her to go back in the bubble. But it's capped at 60 damage, so no matter what you do, you can't do more than that at a time. And that should be that. That's time. Okay, I had some kind of rough bosses on that one. But the way that we do the 3 areas and kind of the intended order in this category turns out to be really cool. So, thanks guys for letting me show this one off. Learned this for the rando tourney, and this category means a fair bit to me, so you don't see it that often either. So thanks everyone.